I'm Kaiv Smith. I'm 73 years old, and I need you to stay right here for the next 8 minutes. Because what I'm about to tell you, nobody told me. Not my father, not my coach, not a single mentor I ever had. I had to figure all of this out the hard way, through lost relationships, lost money, lost years, and a whole lot of mornings waking up wondering how I ended up so far from where I meant to be. These aren't dramatic mistakes. There's no headline moment, no single catastrophe. These are the quiet ones, the slow ones, the kind that take 10, 20, 30 years to finally show you the damage they've been doing all along. 10 mistakes. I promise you, at least 3 of these will hit you somewhere personal. Stay with me. Here's something nobody tells you when you're young. Your body doesn't send warnings, it sends verdicts. I smoked for 28 years, from 16 to 44. Not because I loved it. By the end, I didn't even enjoy it. I just kept going because quitting felt like too much effort. You know what's real effort? Sitting across from a cardiologist at 57 while he tells you your arteries look like corroded pipes. I had a colleague, let's call him Dennis. Guy ran marathons at 40, thought he was untouchable. At 52, his back collapsed so badly he couldn't lace his own shoes for 6 months. Not from running, from 2 decades of sitting in a desk chair without ever stretching once. Every skipped meal, every 4-hour night, every year on the couch. Your body logs all of it. It just doesn't bill you until the worst possible moment. My brother and I didn't speak for 11 years. 11 years. Over something so petty I'm almost embarrassed to say it out loud. He borrowed money from our mother without mentioning it to me. I found out. And instead of picking up the phone and saying, "Ray, that stings, here's why," I just went cold, stopped calling, stopped showing up. Thanksgivings passed in silence. His kids grew up not knowing their uncle. And the whole time I told myself I was the one who'd been wronged, so it was his move to make. That's not dignity. That's cowardice wearing a pride costume. We finally reconciled when he had a hip replacement and his wife called me from the hospital. 11 years of silence ended by a 40-minute conversation that I could have started on any random Tuesday afternoon. My neighbor back in the 80s, Frank Duca, bought a boat. Beautiful thing. Sat on a trailer in his driveway. He used it maybe 6 times in 4 years. Every Saturday, Frank was out there waxing it. And every Saturday, I'm at my kitchen window feeling like a failure because I didn't have one. A boat I didn't even want. I got seasick on anything bigger than a bathtub. I didn't fish, I didn't sail. But Frank had one, and I didn't. And somehow that meant I was losing. Losing what? There was no competition. I invented the race in my own head, and then spent years furious that I wasn't winning it. We do this every single day. Job titles, square footage, vacation photos, our kids' grades. You're comparing your Chapter 4 to somebody else's Chapter 12. It's a game with no finish line, and it will drain every drop of joy from what you actually have. For 15 years, I told myself I'd learn piano. My grandmother had this beautiful old upright in her parlor. When I was a kid, I used to sit on the bench and press the keys, and she'd say, "Kaiv, you've got the hands for it." 15 years of next year. Then my knees, then my eyes, then the roof, then tuition, then something else. Always something else. Here's the truth. Life doesn't slow down. It just reshuffles. New problems replace old ones. New obligations swallow every gap the old ones left behind. I did eventually start lessons. At 68. My instructor, a very patient woman named Linda, once told me I had the rhythm of someone trying to walk on ice. She wasn't wrong. But here's the thing. I'm terrible at piano and completely happy about it, which is more than I can say for the 15 years I spent waiting for a perfect moment that was never going to arrive. I was a varsity wrestler in high school, 154 pounds, conference semi-finalist, proudest moment of my teenage years. I was still talking about it at dinner parties in my 50s. My daughter finally said, gently, kindly, "Dad, that was 35 years ago." She wasn't being cold. She was being honest. I'd been so locked into who I was at 17 that I hadn't bothered becoming anyone interesting since. Your past wins are fine as memories. They're destructive as an identity. Who are you building right now? I had a group of guys I played cards with every other Friday. 12 years. Good laughs, cold beers, bad jokes. When my business partner emptied our shared account and disappeared to Arizona in '96, not one of them called. Not one. I'm not asking for grand gestures. I didn't need anyone to fix it. I mean a simple, "Hey man, you doing all right?" Nothing. Absolute silence. The following Friday, cards resumed like it never happened. When I brought it up, one guy said, "We figured you'd rather not talk about it." No, they'd rather not hear about it. There's a canyon of difference between those two things. Fair-weather people aren't villains. Most of them don't even realize what they're doing. But if your entire social world is built on them, you're constructing a house with no foundation. Fine in the sunshine, gone in the first real storm. After my partner vanished with the money, I hauled that rage around like a backpack full of bricks. For years. Brought it up at barbecues, at family dinners. I once started a rant about it at the dentist's office. My wife at the time, Susan, finally looked at me and said, "Kaiv, you're giving that man free rent inside your head, and he's not even covering utilities." She was absolutely right. Holding a grudge doesn't punish the person who wronged you. It poisons your own days. I'm not telling you to forgive everyone who's ever burned you. Some things don't deserve forgiveness. But choosing to carry it every single day, that's a decision. And it costs you far more than it cost them. My son wanted to study art history in college. I wanted business, engineering, something with a clear career path. I made spreadsheets. I pulled salary data. I presented my case like a prosecutor going after a conviction. He listened politely, nodded, enrolled in art history anyway. Graduated. Worked at a museum for 8 years. Now runs educational programming for a nonprofit. Loves what he does every single morning. Meanwhile, I spent an entire summer damaging our relationship and making him feel like his passions weren't valid, over a decision that was never mine to make. Not every hill is worth climbing. Most hills aren't even worth looking at twice. For decades, I wore being busy like it was an accomplishment. 60-hour weeks, weekends at the office. Couldn't sit still on a Sunday afternoon without that gnawing guilt, like rest was something I hadn't earned yet. And what did I have to show for it? Half those hours were dead weight. Meetings that should have been a 2-minute phone call. Tasks I refused to delegate because it felt like admitting weakness. I was spinning my wheels at top speed and calling it forward motion. The busiest years of my life? Least meaningful results. The years I slowed down, made deliberate choices, actually paused? That's when things moved. Busyness is not the same as purpose, and it took me an embarrassingly long time to understand that. This one took me the longest. I spent my 30s waiting for my 40s when I'd have more money. Spent my 40s waiting for my 50s when the kids would be grown. I spent my 50s waiting for retirement, convinced that's when real life begins. And when retirement finally came, I sat in my kitchen on a Monday morning, coffee going cold, calendar completely empty, and I thought, now what? I'd been so fixated on arriving somewhere that I'd sleepwalked through the entire journey. Every single stage of life has something worth noticing, not in a greeting card kind of way, in a real way, a specific way. The sound of your house when everyone's asleep. A meal that turned out better than expected. A Thursday where nothing went sideways and nobody needed anything from you. Those aren't small moments. Those are the whole thing. We just miss them because we're always scanning the horizon for something bigger that may never show up. Look, I'm not up here pretending I've got it figured out. At 73, I still catch myself falling into half of these. But here's what I'm offering you. A head start. Pick one of these 10, whichever one made your chest tighten. And do one thing about it this week. Not a total life overhaul. One conversation, one phone call, one small correction. That's how things actually change. Not in explosions, in adjustments.